Hi there. I just wanted to do a video. And this video, I don't know, it might seem a little, I personally, I personally wanted to talk about this video because I've had a lot of different types of experiences when it comes to different light skin platforms I've watched through the years. And I wanted to talk about something because people always talk over and over again about creating a space or creating a community for mixed race people, light skinned people. And the thing is that I find a problem with this is that every time I find a platform where they only, like, they talk about, having mixed race and light skinned people in a different category, they only include, or their platform is mainly about light skinned and mixed race black women. And from my perspective, it's like this. Okay, so if you think that, there's a difference between mixed race and light skinned people, they have a different experience than dark skinned black people, I would say, honestly, I think that people sometimes have a different experience than other people. Um, does that really specify? I guess you could say people who are racially ambiguous, but I've seen many dark skinned people asked if they were mixed. I've seen many dark skinned people who were just black being asked if they were part Indian or if they were Indian descent. And when I say Indian descent, I mean South Asian descent. So to me, it's very ambiguous in the idea that black people are perceived as black by everyone, when in reality, I don't think they are. I think most black people get asked if they're mixed. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not living their lives. I'm not living a dark skinned black woman's life. But I've heard them say that they've been asked if they're mixed and things of that nature. Um, so when we talk about experience, I do think, there is a difference. I do. If someone is most of the time thought of as black and someone else is most of the time thought of as, Hispanic or Indian or some kind of ethnicity other than, black. The problem that I find with these channels, though, is this. This is the main thing that I've never really been able to relate to personally. This is a bit problematic. And to me, it's like, okay, if you can't understand this side of what I deal with, then I don't see how you really see yourself different from dark-skinned black people. I will explain. Um, on many channels, they tend to focus on light-skinned black women. Many of the time, they're focusing on light-skinned black women, but they're not really talking about light-skinned and mixed-race black people. And for me, that's a major problem. How come you never talk about, mixed race, black people? And why do you only talk about women? That strategy, to me, is the same strategy that people always talk about mixed race black women and light skinned black women because of the fetishization of mixed race women by other races of men. So, for example, black men love to focus on light skinned and mixed race women. And you will find on many of these channels that they focus a lot on dark-skinned black men. Like the many of the interactions that I've had that were negative with light-skinned channels were usually because of a dark-skinned black man. I can't think of one that wasn't, actually, honestly. And that's the part of it that I don't understand, is this. Okay, if you're saying that you're different than other black people, how come you're still going after the same thing? Like, you go after dark-skinned black men as if they're your own. I don't know, from my perspective, and I say this because I'm like, many people are much lighter skinned than me. But from my perspective, I've never seen the dark skinned black man as my, you know, not the male version of me, basically. I've always seen the dark skinned black man as maybe my mother's male version of her. I don't know. Like, that might be her male version of her. Or a dark skinned black woman's male version of themselves. But I've never seen it where basically, like, I'm different, yet my other half and the men that I go for and I cater to are dark skinned black people. To me, it's almost like, are you trying to say you're different for a reason rather than reality? What is your reality? I do not know, but I feel like actions speak louder than words. If you're saying you're different, but you're going for the same thing as dark skinned black women, then I don't really know if you think you're different. And that's the thing to me, is some channels, they don't specifically cater to dark skinned black men. They may not talk about them. They may not even act like, that's what, light skinned black women do, that they are partial to dark skinned black men. And from my perspective on that is like this, though. What bothers me about channels like that is still you're focusing on light skinned mixed race women, but you're not focusing on light skinned mixed race people. That's mainly my issue. It's like, let's think. Many of the time, people who are Dominican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, um, Brazilian, the ones mixed with black, many of the time, these people have the Puerto Rican man and the Puerto Rican woman, Dominican man, Dominican woman, Cuban man, Cuban woman. There's not just this community of Cuban women, Dominican women, Puerto Rican women. When you don't really acknowledge the male side of your identity, then how much of an identity do you have? If you don't understand or recognize, or you don't care or talk about the issues of men who are mixed race and light skinned, and you don't include them in your community as, a main thing that you speak upon, to me, it's just like, I feel like it's not serious. I feel like it's a response to something. And then, if that's the case, if it's a response to dark skinned black women, colorist types, the types that believe in, like, colorism, crybaby platforms. I don't want to call anyone names, so that's why I'm trying to be careful. But, like, those type of platforms, if it's in response to that, which most of the time it seems to be, it's like, so outside of this whole situation, how much of an identity did you have with your own people? And do you even recognize that these are your own people? Or is it just a matter of a response from dark-skinned black women? And that's the thing. For me, it's like, I will never let a dark-skinned black woman's insecurity define me. That's just how I see it. I mean, like, I don't think anyone should let their insecurities define them. If you feel like you're the same and you are basically, responding to them and you don't really address, mixed race people as a whole, then I wonder how much do you really align with mixed people as an identity. A major thing for me is, honestly, with all this said, personally, I've always seen men that look similar to me racially very differently than men who look like dark skinned black men. And I've always seen, I've always seen it where on these type of platforms, these type of people tend to be ignored, or every now and then somebody talks about, mixed race men, but, it's not the main thing. Honestly, when we talk about colorism and the negative comments on light-skinned and mixed race men, I feel like, um, honestly, on the colorism dynamic, I've heard as much content about how it's wrong to be colorist against light-skinned men on light-skinned channels as much as I have on dark-skinned colorism crybaby platforms. So, I've seen it on both sides. But the difference is, one side, they're just, I feel like they do it for different purposes. One kind of like just touches upon it and then moves on and moves back to talking about light skinned women versus dark skinned women. The other one does it to kind of like say, oh, they deal with some stuff like we do. Which, I don't know. I kind of, honestly, if you ask me, I've never seen any actual colorism against dark skinned black women. But I have literally seen colorism against light skinned men from dark skinned women. But seen it from dark skinned, like against dark skinned men too. So anyway, so I don't know. To me, I if I think like who's had it worse, I wouldn't know. But I'm just saying, like, from what I've seen, it always seems like it's more acceptable to say anti light skinned comments, even like in the workplace. If you said negative things about a black woman and her dark skin, you would probably be fired. But if you're a dark skinned person who's attacking light skinned people, it's more acceptable. But like, that's a major problem that I've had, it seems like, with light skinned colorism channels, basically, is that they basically focus too much on, light skinned women. And to me, that perspective is very similar to how dark skinned black men always talk. When it comes to light skin, they automatically go to light skinned women. That's what they straight up talk about. And you can see, like I said, in many light skinned platforms, they are very pro black men. Now, not all of them, but many are. So, to me, that's why it's just like, I've never really gotten along with many of the channels because it's like, if you really had a sense of identity, you would have an identity with both men and women. just like, like I said, many Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, many people who are multi-generationally mixed have communities and identities with men and women, not just the light-skinned mixed women in their communities. It's specifically both the Cubana and Cubano, basically. Um, so to me, I just kind of think like I just want for light skin. Well, I just would appreciate, light skin channels to have more like both qualities. But I never see any channels, honestly, that are even pro light skinned men. Why can't there be any channels that actually focus on light skinned mixed race men? I would like to see that, but I don't see it. And it just weirds me out. Like, wait, why doesn't anyone talk about them? But yeah, that's basically all I have to say in this video. Oh, one other thing I wanted to, um, eh, yeah, I'm gonna actually make that a separate video. Oh, and also, as far as my personal preference, I also wanted to talk about. I've always kind of not understood, like, do people from these platforms, if anyone can answer down below, do they generally like see men of their own phenotype as their own men, or do they not? Do they do you see dark skin, or did you see dark skin? Excuse me. Did you see dark skinned black men as a part of your men, basically, as well, or just mixed race men? Personally, like I said, for me, I've always seen it where I prefer and have always seen men who are like caramel complected. I've always been like that too. Like, I prefer men who are, I prefer light skinned men over dark skinned men. But I prefer caramel complected men over light skinned men. Like, really, really light skinned. But I prefer light skinned men over white men. So, and that's just because I've always felt more connection with them than I have with black men or white men. But the thing is, in reality, in society, I mean, when you are more, I guess, of a middle, it's like a you get men who are basically in you, at least in my experience, that are both sides of the coin. And sometimes you get guys that are mixed race. Major thing for me with mixed race men, because like in general, when I'm like, I've never dated a mixed race man, and I've never had anything to do with a mixed race man. I've talked to mixed race men, or men I thought were mixed race. There's sometimes some men, they look mixed race. They probably are mixed race, I guess, but they identify it with a different nationality. Like maybe they were Latino. But I've only like talked to maybe like a handful of men that fit that category basically. Never been on a date or anything. I'd always end up dating like guys who were white. It's just to me it's more so a category basically, as far as like, think of like a bowl of marbles, for example, and you have a preference towards red and green marbles, but there's basically like 98% of the bowl is green marbles and only 2% are red marbles. You might prefer red marbles more, but you're gonna most likely pick a green marble. And for me, that's how it is with dating and things of that nature. But um, because I'm open to dating any race, basically, it's just always been where like I generally date white men, but at the same time, like I've never obviously seen white men as like racially the same as me. You get what I'm saying? But I have seen men obviously who are like a caramel complected with my phenotype, as racially more similar to me. But I've never really seen like, for example, dark skinned black men under that same category. To me, it's always been like white men and dark skinned black men. Both of them to me are just like, different. Now, if I like one or whatever, that's just a matter of chance, basically. I guess maybe my environment, since there are a lot of white people. But as far as like who I basically, prefer, thinking of similar to myself and can relate to, and not feel so freaking fetishized. Honestly, being completely honest, of all men, it always seems like black men fetishize you the most. And I say that as a person who's never even entertained a black man. Like, I've never tried to talk to a black man in a way of anything like that, okay? Like, I've never entertained that in my mind while awake or asleep. So, like, I never think of dark skinned black men. Um, so, you know, I've always still felt like dark skinned black men were more likely to fetishize. The ones that, talk about your skin tone, they call you red bone, they call you, they ask you what your ethnicity is before they know your name. And they act like, they act like if you're mixed and that you're mixed, that it's better than what they are, So they put so much into being mixed and sexualize it so much. Like, that's right after that they're talking about boyfriend and all this crap, and it's like, you know, I always felt uncomfortable about this whole situation because like for me, I wasn't taught to see black people as different racially from me, but I understood in my mind that obviously if someone looks different from you, as far as like attraction, settling down, having children, and I want to have children that look like me, I probably want to have them with someone who looks like me. Um, so anyhow, um, I knew that part, but at the same time, I didn't realize that dark skinned black people would look at me differently. And I always felt like a lot of the time with dark skinned black people, when I was younger, I would get shocked because they would respond like how I said. And, when you're not told that you're mixed race, because, like, my father was mixed race, technically, Creole, Cajun, Dominican, and some Native American way back. You know, normal stuff, basically. Excuse me. Excuse me. Um, So, to me, when it basically comes to black men, it was always a shock because I'm kind of like taught that, no one really looks at me like that. Like, I'm different. And then you are acting like I'm different, and then I don't know how to handle it. But, you know, I've never really experienced that from the other end. And I've never experienced that from mixed men. Mixed men I've talked to, like, I've talked to mixed men before, and they definitely don't seem to do that at all, in my experience. I've never really had them ask me my ethnicity straight up before they knew my name. I've never had white men ask my ethnicity before my name, and never had anybody act like being mixed or something made it better that I was mixed or something of that nature, like it was better than being black. I mean, that would seem really weird if a white person acted that way, it would be really odd. And with mixed men, I mean, it would be weird because, I mean, they're mixed too. Now, I can understand like people thinking, they like mixed phenotype more, but sometimes people kind of just go off phenotype. It's just doesn't really it's more features than anything. Um but yeah, to me I just find it like, it's easier with people who are mixed race because it's almost like they're not going to fetishize your phenotype because they are what you are. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And one other thing I wanted to address, and I'm sorry, my nose was bleeding, and that's why I'm kind of talking funny, because, yeah, my nose was just bleeding on this side. I have a bit of uh, well, it's just a medical issue in my nose, but anyway. Um, anyway, um, I wanted to talk about the whole situation with, mixed race women platforms that I don't understand. Like, if you go after something that basically, you know, like black men, and I'm not talking about all platforms for light skin at all. I'm just talking about specific ones. Um, I never understood this because a lot of the time, from what I have seen, they basically are saying they are different and they see themselves as differently, and they are basically still with dark skinned black men, which implies that you don't see yourself too differently any more than dark skinned black women do. But then at the same time, like to be kind of like fetishized. Now, the fetishizing part to me is a sense of low self esteem, in my opinion. Because, like I said, I think it's more so you need some kind of appreciation because other people may not appreciate. But that has nothing to do with being mixed race, I think. I think that has to do with whether you're attractive or not. Um, but I kind of just find it, you know, that part of it, the portion of, like I said, the platform for just mixed race and light skinned women, to me, is totally focused on dark skinned women. It's totally focused on dark skinned black men. So, how can you separate yourself from black people if you are connecting yourself to black people? So that's just generally how I see that. I mean, like, I just think, like, if you want to really have a true light skin platform, people should probably do a platform that focuses on mixed race people, men and women, not just specifically, mixed race women. It seems like you're into some sense of, you know, the whole idea of how dark skinned people treat light skinned women, which has to do with being connected to the black community. If you separate yourself from the black community, then you shouldn't be concerned what dark skinned black people feel about light skinned and mixed race people. And with that said, in all and everything that I've said, I technically do not really, I believe in different things when it comes to blackness, but I'm setting that all aside just for this video, just to address a few things that I've been addressing. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to say on this video. Thanks for watching. Bye.